Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I got on the Cincinnati Bookstore Crawl more in depth. So let's get right into it. The first book, as you know, I got was It's the Little Things. It's just like little inspirational quotes. I've been leaving it on my desk downstairs, and I think it's like a great little decor piece. I like to go open it and just look at the cute little quotes that they have, and it's all like pig theme and rainbow and stuff. So cute. The next book I got, I didn't reread it. I already read it in high school, so I just looked up like a summary to kind of like jog my memory, and that is Speak. I read it when I was a freshman in high school, I think, so 2012. The book itself was published in 1999, and now the book is banned in a lot of schools because it does talk about some sensitive topics. So Speak is a book about Melinda. She is a freshman, and she goes to a party and gets essayed by a senior. Now she calls the police on the party, and the police come and shut the party down, but she doesn't tell anybody what happened. She just rushes home. And then when the school year starts, she is kind of ostracized. I mean, everybody's mad at her for calling the police on the party, and they don't know why she would do that. So she loses her friends, and nobody's talking to her. And in turn, she experienced something traumatic. So she stops talking altogether. And the only place where she really expresses herself is in her art class. A former friend of hers starts dating the guy who essayed her, and she tries to warn them. She's still trying to be a good friend and warn them, like, hey, this is not a good guy, and nobody believes her. And then prom night comes around, and something happens to that friend, and the friend finally believes her, and she breaks up with that guy. Now the guy is angry that now women are standing up to him, so he attacks Melinda, and the truth comes out. Everybody hears what a dirtbag this guy is, and Melinda finds herself again, and it ends on a very uplifting note. She is getting into her art and telling people her story and standing up for herself. The next books I'm going to talk about are the Miss Peregrine series. Now, I only bought 2, but when I was younger, I read 3 of them, and I think there might be like 6, but I stopped at 3. So the first one is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and the second one is Hollow City, and the third one, which I didn't find, but I'll go ahead and talk about it, is the Library of Souls. So the premise of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children is that there are these homes all over the world for peculiar kids. And now the peculiar kids are kids that have gifts. Like on the cover here, this one has a hole through her. On this cover, this one's floating. One of them controls plants, and one of them controls bees. One can fly, all kinds of gifts. And each home is run by a woman. This home in particular is run by Miss Peregrine, and they are shapeshifters. They turn into birds, and they're kind of like a den mother. Like this is basically an orphanage that all these kids are staying in, and they are like the headmaster. Like they teach them stuff and cook and clean and all of that. Now the houses that these kids live in are in a time loop, or like a black hole situation that the den mothers have created. So like it'll be the same day, and then at the end of the day it just resets, and the whole rest of the world moves on. And it's got some like kind of shield security system. Don't quote me on that. The story follows Jake. Now, Jake is extremely close to his grandfather, and his grandfather passes away. And the grandfather left a letter for him basically saying, like, hey, there's this place you need to go see that I loved, and me and you were peculiar. So Jake goes on a journey to go find the house, and when he does, he befriends all of the people in Miss Peregrine's home and becomes best friends with a girl named Emma. Well, Emma tells him that there are these evil creatures called hollows, and that is why they have to stay in the safety time loops. The whites and the hollows are the bad people. So the whites were originally like scientists who were trying to steal the Peculiar's powers and the Den Mother's powers by doing like experiments and stuff like that. And one of the experiments went wrong, and it created the hollows. Now the hollows are like these pale creatures that basically like don't have a soul anymore, and to get their soul back they have to eat a peculiar child. The hollows and the whites are basically like trying to hunt down the peculiars and find all the loops. Long story short, Miss Peregrine, the Den Mother, gets taken, and the loop that they're in gets destroyed, so all the kids have to leave together and try to travel to somewhere safe. In the second book, Hollow City, the kids decide that they are going to save Miss Peregrine. You know, they have gifts. They have been around for a while. They think they can do it. They have a suspicion on where the whites and hollows might have taken her. So they get on a train to travel there, and they get attacked. They jump off the train and they travel through a city where they find more peculiar children. They tell them, like, hey, this is what's going on, so those kids join them too. They finally do catch Miss Peregrine, and it seems a little too easy. And they try to set her back from a bird to a person. And when she transforms, it is not Miss Peregrine. It is Miss Peregrine's evil brother who has been working for the whites and the hollows. He leads the whites and the hollows straight to the kids, and they all get captured. But somehow Jake and Emma escape and try to find their way to another loop to get more help from other kids. And as they're escaping, Jake realizes that one of his powers is he can actually control the hollows. And I forgot to mention that Jake is peculiar because he can see the hollows and nobody else can. I did read the third book, Library of Souls, but I didn't find a copy of it while I was at the bookstore. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it though. Jake and Emma are determined to go save everybody, and they have an idea of where the whites and hollows like headquarters is. So they hire a boat to go and find them. Now when they get to this like island that all the whites and hollows are on, it is a terrible place. This book is darker than the other two books for sure. On this island, the peculiar children are being sold as slaves. Everybody is hooked on this drug called ambrosia. The scientists are still doing experiments on the peculiars and the women. And there is a secret fighting ring where they like bet money and they beat each other up. Now the main experiment that the whites are doing is taking the peculiar children and sucking their souls out and trying to give it to somebody else, and it keeps failing. So a lot of peculiar children and whites and hollows are dying as a result of these experiments. And we find out that Miss Peregrine has another brother, and he's been hiding out in this city all this time, kind of fighting the whites and the hollows from the background. And he decides to help Jake and Emily get to the labs to save the peculiar children. So they free the peculiar children that are in the basement, and they stop some of the main experiments. Then they go to find Miss Peregrine and some of the other Den Mothers that were taken. And the good brother and the evil brother see each other, and they start fighting, and they are enraged, and they start tearing the building down, and accidentally unalive themselves. So now everybody's safe. Everybody is rescued. Well, the ones who survived. And Jake decides you know, I've been gone for a while. I should go see my parents and let them know I'm okay. He goes home and he talks to his parents, and his parents are like, you're crazy. We're going to send you to an insane asylum to get help. Miss Perrine and the Peculiar Kids hear this and rush to Jake's house and convince the parents that, hey, he's not crazy. And Jake decides that he is going to start living with the Peculiar Children. And that is where I ended the series. Now, I believe there is 3 more books, but that's where I ended it. It was a pretty, you know, good ending, honestly, closure, you know, so. The next book that I had picked up was Black Maria by Kevin Young. It is a collection of poems, and I'm going to be honest with you, I DNF'd this. I did not finish it. I just don't think I was in the mood for poetry. Sometimes I have a hard time reading poetry. Maybe if I listened to it as an audiobook, it would be better, because poetry has its own rhythm to it and its own verses, and I really think hearing somebody read it to me would help a lot, because sometimes I get stuck on it a little bit. It must just be because I don't ever read poetry. This book was published in 2007, but it reads more like the 1930s. It follows a private detective in a femme fatale. Femme fatale is a woman who seduces men to do her bidding, or is a murderess. And they're in a world of crime and sex, and they're running after each other. And that's it. I only read the first part. I did enjoy it. I just was struggling a little bit, so I decided to put it down. The next book we're going to talk about is The Duplication House by Nathan Singer. It is a book I got that was from a author local to Cincinnati. It was published in 2023, so it is a relatively new book. This book is very odd. It is a very intriguing story, very different. I did enjoy the odd haunted house aspect of it. So first off, the language is odd. It's like an older talking kind of way, like maybe the 50s or 60s. The way that the characters act and talk. He calls people a young cat, and that he has queer dreams at night. And he does a lot of drugs like cocaine and Valium, and drinks all the time. And there was just a group of people that did that a lot in that time era. The book is about a haunted house in the woods of this small town that people are going in and vanishing. Now, spoiler alert, we learn that they go in the house and there's all of the people are in there. And when they step in a room, their twin is created. Like up to that exact moment, they're the exact same. And that this causes people to go crazy. Like they either kill the twin or fall in love with the twin. And if one of them leaves the house, the other one is stuck there. So all these people have decided to stay in the house. Every couple of years, somebody does escape, which means, you know, that they trapped their other self in there, their twin. In the first part of the story, we meet somebody who has escaped named Emily, and she tells us her story, and we find out about the main character that we are following, how he's a writer and a failed writer kind of, and he really needs this job. Then the second part, the whole first half is copy and pasted from the first part with slightly different wording or a little more details. And we start to get this story of Emily, and then the writer decides to go to the house. The third part, it starts differently, and then it repeats him going into the house again, and the Emily in the house is evil. She's like trapping people and killing people, and like she's the boss of the house. And the writer gets drugged by Emily, and it gets very confusing, kind of hard to follow. At the end, I'm gonna be honest, I just flipped through it very quickly. He lost my attention, and I was honestly getting frustrated with the book. You get information. There's a lot of blood and sex in this book just to be gory and nasty, and I have nothing against blood and action and sex, but not at the point where you're doing it just to be nasty. And he actually talks about that, how what's moral and immoral, and this isn't nasty, this is life. But like, I don't want to read it. Honestly, I did not enjoy this book. Like, I like the concept, do not like the book. I thought maybe the book is like going over my head or something. I don't know. I'm not gonna recommend this to anybody. It's just really odd. It's really odd. And part of the book was like an essay. So like the writer's trying to write this book about the duplication house, and then he's also in school writing an essay about people in prison and stuff like that. And yes, it ties together, but like the essay part is so boring. And then the duplication house part, like, yes, you can follow around the story, but it also gets confusing, and they're going back and forth. I did not like it. The next thing we're going to do is open the blind book I got from the Bright Tail Books. It is a memoir, Asian American, food, woman author. So yeah, let's see what it is. The book I got is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is actually a book I almost read 2 months ago. I do actually already have a copy of this, so I will sell this one or something. So I am glad that I got it, because I was interested in already. I almost read it already. So I will definitely read it now, and I will be back with my thoughts on it. So I did finish reading Crying in H Mart. But first I want to mention, the background's different and the lighting kind of sucks. I just moved and I haven't quite figured out, how to get the lighting in here good, or like how I want to set things up. But yeah, I wanted to go ahead and finish this video. So Crying in H Mart was beautiful. It is such a good read, and honestly, like, I just don't have words to encompass really how good it was. I mean, you're just gonna have to read it for yourself to really see. It is her kind of like memoir about dealing with grief and taking care of her mother before she passed away, and what food meant for them, like food as a love language. Honestly, reading it made me cry, and that is very rare for me. It's very hard for a book or movie to make me cry, and it was just so good. And honestly, it made me hungry, so make sure you have snacks if you read it. But this was just beautiful. I really highly recommend it, and I am so glad that I took the time to read it. Next, I read my manga, which was Spy Family. It is so cute. So this is the main character, and he is a spy, and he needs to infiltrate this group that's like near school, and he needs to blend in. So he goes and adopts this little girl, and this little girl isn't letting anybody know, but she can actually read minds. And he enrolls her, and then he realizes, this is kind of funky, like it's not a full family. So then he goes and tries to find a wife, and right there, him and the daughter, and this is the wife, and she is actually secretly an assassin. But yeah, it's really cute and funny, and just the way they write everything, like the mission to find a wife, and I went ahead and went out and got all the rest of them. So this is all that I went out and bought. I think that there might be like 2 or 3 more. I'm not totally sure. I just literally went back to manga in Cincinnati and bought all the rest that they had there. So I am obviously really liking this series. I actually saw it's also a TV show, so I'll probably watch that after I read all these. I've only read maybe to 4 so far, but none of them know about each other except the little girl, because she reads mine, so she knows that he's a spy and she's an assassin. But you know, they're all keeping secrets, and it just has some like comedy to it. I really enjoy it. The next book I read, I mainly picked out because the cover stood out to me. I'm so glad I got it. This is Kink. It is a collection of short stories talking about people's kinks and hookups and stuff like that. And yeah, I enjoyed it. There are 15 short stories in here. Some are definitely, you know, better than the others. And one called The Cure, there's a quote I absolutely loved. "You have to stop looking for your self-esteem in a lover." And I think that is so strong. I feel like that's something that a lot of young girls go through, you know, is seeking validation from others. The next one I really enjoyed was Safe Word. It has these sad undertones, you know, unfulfilled desires, and it just really highlights the importance of saying your truth and being true to yourself in life and in the bedroom. The next one I read was Mirror Mirror, and for some reason I just found that one really funny. Another one that stuck out is Gospodar. I might be saying that wrong, but that's what it's called. It was actually a hard read, but I think an important read. It really highlights how dangerous one-night stands can be. But yeah, there's 15 stories in here, and I enjoyed it. It was a good, you know, little read, something really different. So yeah, I would recommend it if you don't mind reading about stuff like that. I know some people don't want to read about, you know, like sexual stuff. So I didn't get to read After I Do, and I didn't read my Bridgerton book, but I have read all the other ones, and I can tell you that I do like them. They're all Regency era romances, and they have their own show on Netflix and everything. Most of them are revolving around the 8 siblings, where, you know, 3 or 4 are about basically like their grandparents, so an older timeline. But yeah, I really enjoy them. And I didn't get to read Black Cake, but like I said, I did watch it, the TV show. So I can tell you a little bit about Black Cake. So this mom passes away, and she leaves some notes or a video or something for her children saying, "I need to tell my truth." And the truth is she grew up on an island, and on that island it was just her and her dad got in a bunch of trouble with a gang and needed to pay all these debts. And the gang said, "Instead of paying your debts, let us marry your daughter." And after, you know, some threatening and stuff, he agreed to it. Well, the wedding comes around and they get married, and then somebody poisons the gang leader that she got married to, and they are blaming her. So she swims off into the ocean and disappears and pops up somewhere in like England, I'm pretty sure. It's kind of like a group home for immigrants. I'm not totally sure, it's been a while. And she becomes friends with this girl, and they become roommates, and they start like going to school and applying to go to more schooling. She wants to be a nurse, and the friend wants to be a marine biologist. So they both get accepted to the school, so they get on the train to ride together, and the train crashes and there are no survivors except for her. So she assumes the identity of her friend that died, so she goes to school to become a marine biologist and starts going by that name, and a bunch more stuff happens, but I don't really remember past that point. But I do know that this book is highly recommended and has a good rating. Thank you so much for listening. That's just a little recap of all the books I got on the Cincinnati Book Crawl and what I think about them and their summary and all that. But yeah, thank you. Bye. See you next time.